There's only one indicator in the entire stock market that has predicted every single crash and every single rebound. One signal that if you follow it can literally build you generational wealth. It's not moving averages, it's not RSI, it's not some complicated hedge fund algorithm. It's the VIX, the Fear and Greed Index. And every single time it spikes above 40, the stock market has been within days of its bottom. Ignore it and you'll panic with the crowd. Use it and you'll be the one stacking wealth while everyone else runs for the exits. I'm an ex-financial advisor. I allocated over 10 million euros across Europe for everyday people. Teachers, engineers, small business owners, you name it. And I learned one truth that still shocks me today. Most investors panic at exactly the wrong moment. They buy when it feels safe, they sell when it feels dangerous, and they never understand that danger equals opportunity. They called me crazy when I said to keep 20% of my portfolio in cash. They called me psycho when I deployed it during 2020 crash, while the VIX was screaming and headlines were predicting the end of capitalism. But that dry powder, that cash, it turned into positions that still generate thousands in dividends every year. And here's the problem. Most investors wait for calm seas. They buy when the VIX sits at the 15, when CNN's Fear and Greed Index is flashing green, when everyone around them feels safe. That's exactly the wrong time. The real money is made when volatility rips above 40, when fear is at maximum, and when the crowd is running for the door. So today, I'm going to show you why the VIX is the most powerful buy signal in the market. I'll show you how it connects to the Fear and Greed Index. I'll walk you through every single spike in the last 15 years and exactly how much a $10,000 investment at each panic would be worth today. And then I'll give you the psycho investor strategy. Always keep 10 to 20% in cash and deploy it only when VIX explodes above 40. That's how you turn panic into profit. That's how you build wealth faster than any index fund will ever allow. Let's start with the VIX. Officially, it's called the CBOE Volatility Index, but forget the jargon. Here's what it really means. When investors are calm, they don't buy much protection. Options are cheap, the VIX stays low, and when investors panic, they rush to buy puts. They'll pay any price for safety. That rush explodes option prices. The VIX spikes, so think of the VIX as the market's panic thermometer. At 15, the market is calm. At 20 to 30, nerves are showing. At 40 plus, it's chaos. At 80, it's hysteria. And here's the psycho truth. Every single time the VIX has spiked above 40, the S&P 500 has been within days of its bottom. 2008, the great financial crisis. Banks collapsing, people lining up at ATMs, CNBC saying capitalism might not survive. The VIX hit 80. That was the bottom. If you had invested $10,000 when VIX hit 80 by 2013, you'd have more than $25,000. While most investors stayed paralyzed, psycho investors doubled their wealth. 2011, the Eurozone debt crisis. Headlines screaming Greece was bankrupt, the euro might collapse, the VIX hit 45. That was the bottom. 10,000 invested right there turned into 16,000 within a year. 60% gains, while the crowd was still panicking. 2015, China devaluates its currency. Markets worldwide shiver. Every commentator says global meltdown. The VIX crosses 50. That was the bottom. 10,000 invested then turned into more than 14,000 by late 2016. 40% returns just for doing the opposite of the herd. 2018. The Fed hikes rates, markets tremble, recession fears everywhere. The VIX hits 42. That was the bottom. 10,000 invested in that fear became nearly 18,000 in 2 years. 80% profit for buying when fear was highest. 2020, COVID crash, borders closed, markets frozen, the VIX hits 80. That was the exact bottom. 10,000 invested then became 27,000 by the end of 2021, almost tripling your money in less than 2 years. with simple S&P index. Meanwhile, the majority sold at the bottom. They thought this time was different. They missed the fastest recovery in stock market history. And just this year, April 2025, a sudden flash crash, the VIX hit 52, the Fear and Greed Index at 4, headlines and screaming, worst crash since COVID. That was the bottom. 10,000 invested right there, already worth 12,500 by August. 25% returns in 4 months, faster than most people earn in a year. Do you see the pattern? Every spike in fear became a wealth building event. Every panic was the setup, and every time the crowd missed it. Now let's talk psychology. The Fear and Greed Index, it tracks 7 market signals: momentum, volatility, safe haven demand, junk bonds, put-call ratios, all rolled into one number between 0 and 100. At 80 to 100, everyone feels invincible. That's greed. That's when tops form. At 0 to 20, everyone is terrified. That's fear. That's when bottoms form. March 2020, the index at 2, VIX at 80. That was the exact bottom. April 2025, the index at 4, VIX at 52. That was the bottom again. So here's the rule. VIX above 40, fear and greed below 20, that's your green light to buy. Not when it feels safe, when it feels terrifying. And here's how you play it. The dry powder strategy. Always keep 10 to 20% in cash. Not to hide, not because you're afraid, but to strike. Because if you're fully invested when VIX spikes to 50, you have nothing left to deploy. You just sit and watch opportunity pass. But with dry powder, you load and fight. Imagine a $100,000 portfolio, 80,000 invested, 20,000 waiting. April 2025. The VIX at 52, Fear and Greed Index at 4. You put your 20,000, buy SPY ETF and maybe QQQQ, pick a few solid dividend names, and by July markets bounce 25%. Your 20,000 becomes 25. That's $5,000 profit purely from discipline. Now imagine repeating this every single time the VIX crosses 40, 2011, 2015, 2018, 2020, and 2025. 5 plays in 15 years, every single one profitable. Even with just 10,000 each time, your wealth would multiply far beyond the passive investor who waited. That's the psycho edge. But here's the twist. Volatility is changing. In 2008, panic lasted months. In 2020, weeks. In 2025, just days. With algorithms, high-frequency traders, and faster news cycles, spikes are sharper but shorter. Next time the VIX hits 50, you might have only 48 hours to act. No time to think, no time to hesitate, no time to prepare your cash. So preparation is everything. Cash ready, rules ready, courage ready. Because opportunity doesn't knock, it kicks down the door and vanishes. Now let's talk risk. This isn't a free lunch. The VIX can stay elevated. Markets can fall further even after 40. If you buy too early, you'll feel pain before profit. That's why you never go all in. You scale in. You buy gradually, buying daily or weekly, and you accept volatility because volatility is the price of long-term wealth. You're not trying to catch the exact bottom. You're buying when probabilities are titled in your favor. So let's recap. The VIX is the only indicator you truly need to build wealth. Every spike above 40 has marked a generational bottom. The Fear and Greed Index confirms it. The dry powder strategy ensures you can act. 10,000 in 2008 became 25, 10,000 in 2011 became 16, 10,000 in 2015 became 14, 10,000 in 2018 became 18, and 10,000 in 2020 became 27. Fear created all of that, not safety. Not calm, fear. So the question is simple. Next time the VIX rips above 50, will you panic with the herd or strike like a psycho investor? Drop your answer in the comments. Subscribe if you want more strategies that beat Wall Street at its own game. And remember, panic is temporary. Profit is forever. This is Psycho Investor, signing off.